just thank the MCs who have once again given me like the best possible greeting ever, because I am not that special. And they made it seem like I'm really special. Okay, we do have slides, that's great. Okay, is the mic on? Are we rolling? Are we good? Can I get a hand clap if y'all can hear me? Okay, that's good. I like that. All right, so first Python keynote ever with both Jollibee logos and Yellow Cab Pizza on the cover. I had to ask the organizers, was that okay? Were they going to get copyright strikes? They said that it should be fine. First and foremost, this is not my first time in Southeast Asia. I lived in Okinawa, Japan while I was stationed in the Marine Corps. As we will talk about it a little bit more in detail, this is now my 7th time in the Philippines. Oh, hey, I've got a mic. I don't want to get too close to this one though, so just make sure we're good. But I will say, this is the first time I've been here without someone telling me I have to be here. So it feels so much better this way. And please invite me back. I'm having a blast with all the things that are considered. But for that to happen, let's first give another big round of applause to the organizers who are putting on this event. So, 2009 was the first time that I stepped foot in Subic Bay, Philippines. I'm sure some people, is there anyone here from Subic Bay? I see a hand up, that is awesome. I will say, this is my 3rd time in Manila. I think Manila is becoming like a very warm place in my heart now. It's amazing, but Subic Bay, I had no idea what to expect. In fact, the only thing I expected was that I would not always look like that. I think I got taller, my hair grew out. You'll have to forgive me because this picture was taken as I was a part of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit. I don't know if you've heard the news. That unit is currently, I will say it on behalf of me and myself alone. They're currently in Iran, and I found out that my nephew is now assigned to that unit. So I'm going to tell great stories about the Marine Corps, and I hope that the current situations don't cloud your judgment of me while I was in the service, or the folks who did not volunteer to be where they are today. So, I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, on my way to Subic Bay, and like I said, 0 expectations of what to expect. I had heard of the Philippines. I could not point to it on a map. I did hear that there was this thing called adobo, though. That'll play a part later. So I was on my first training exercise with the U.S. Marine Corps, a joint training exercise with the Philippine Marines, and my sergeant at the time kind of just came up to me and said, "Hey, are you hungry?" I was on watch. I was supposed to be doing my job. My sergeant asking me if I'm hungry, it seemed like a trap. It seemed like he was trying to trick me. I was like, "No, Sergeant, I'm focused, I'm ready to go." And he's like, "Okay, cut all that out. Like, are you hungry?" And he kind of gave me this look like the answer is yes, the answer is always yes. And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, how much cash do you have?" And I handed him a handful of like single dollars of Philippine pesos that I had. And about 30 minutes later, I was met to the lovely surprise of Yellow Cab Pizza and Jollibee fried chicken. Are anyone here that doesn't like Yellow Cab Pizza and Jollibee fried chicken? That's okay, I'll forgive you. You can raise your hand, we can be brave. No? Okay, so you understand how just in love with the Philippines I became after I had my first questionably legal, because again, I was on duty, supposed to be on watch, and my senior non-commissioned officer just handed me this food that looked amazing. Might I add, I'd been on a ship for 3 months eating cafeteria food. And when these are my options, yeah, I'm gonna need a slice of pizza and a chicken leg, please. This was the single-handed best culinary experience of my life, and I have eaten at Michelin star restaurants. So I will tell you, these are national institutions that should be protected. But I was truly amazed at this experience that I was not supposed to be having, mind you. This was, keep it a secret. So while I was eating my illegal pizza and chicken, my sergeant asked me, well, what are you doing on Libo? And friends, what we call liberty is 3 days of not having to be a military person while I am in Subic Bay in the Philippines. It was the first time that I had not been on a ship or in a tent or in a truck with a weapon and having to work and focus on doing things. This was the first time I would get to enjoy amazing treats like San Miguel. Shout out to my San Miguel lovers. I would get to find more Jollibee and Yellow Cab. I would get to try this amazing dish that I have been told about called adobo for the first time. But I didn't know any of that yet. So of course, he said, what are you doing on Libo? And I said, I don't know, Sergeant. I have no expectations on what to do. And he told me 2 things: get a smoothie and get a haircut. Now, the haircut is something that I would usually hear from a sergeant. You know, that's normal. If our hair grows a little bit, we have to cut it back, get it back in space, and make it work. The smoothie, on the other hand, that was different. So, the day finally arrived, liberty happened, and I stepped off the ship, and through the sea of stalls selling different souvenirs that I could take home to my family, although they didn't realize that I wouldn't be near my family for another 2 years. So I was just taking them to my barracks, apparently. I skirted through that sea of vendors to find a small smoothie shop. And I walked in, and I remember ordering a watermelon and mango smoothie. And when I tell you, I sat there in awe as they fit an entire watermelon into one little smoothie and then proceeded to add like 4 or 5 more mangoes. And you know how I told you that like Jollibee and Yellow Cab was the best culinary experience I'd had in my life? This was the best dessert culinary experience I'd had in my life. Up until about yesterday, where I got another mango smoothie, which reminded me why that first mango and melon smoothie was so darn good. It was amazing. So as I'm sipping my smoothie, I'm noticing a large line forming around this shop that I couldn't read the sign. But as I got closer, I realized, oh, it's a barber shop. Very cool. Okay, well, I was supposed to get a smoothie. Check, did that. Now it's time to go do the haircut thing. Again, I don't know why he's telling me to get a haircut. I could go on ship and get a haircut. I sat in line, and when I got to the front of the counter, I saw people standing on the backs of people who had just gotten a haircut, and I didn't realize that this wasn't just a haircut. It was a haircut that came with a massage. I love the Philippines. This was amazing. And you know what made this so amazing? I had been on a ship for months. I had seen gray concrete steel beam walls and everyone else wearing the same exact outfit as me, for some reason talking all funny. And for the first time in months, I felt like a human being again. My sergeant had tricked me into practicing self-care, practicing kalinga. And like, I didn't even realize it at the time. And it wouldn't be until actually I started preparing this talk that I was like, I see what happened here. Interesting. So let's recap this. What made my first trip to the Philippines legendary? Well, I came in with no expectations, and everything that happened exceeded those expectations. I was made aware of secrets on how to elevate my time while I was here, and I had been tricked into prioritizing self-care. This was like amazing. So now when we fast forward to 2011, this is probably my fourth time going to Subic Bay, and my first time actually visiting Manila afterwards, which was great. I was now in the position of my sergeant. So I did like any other good leader would do. I found someone who was on their very first trip who was standing watch, and I said, "Hey, you hungry?" So as I was preparing this, I wanted to think about what makes something legendary. Because in my mind, and to this day, even as I was driving from the well, I was riding, I was not driving. I can't handle Philippine traffic. I was riding in a Grab from the hotel and driving by all the scenery, and I saw like this old baseball stadium that looked like it was part apartment complex now, and I was like, this is amazing. Like there's so much stuff going on. I'm watching people play basketball. I'm watching people be active. I almost added it to my video, but there was an entire like women's group that looked like they were playing, my daughter has this game. It's like the dancing game that you have on like a Switch. What was it? Just Sing or Just Dance. I was just like, this place is so cool. This is truly a legendary experience. And I see you all here, and I want you to have the same legendary experience, but you see, it's a lot harder, in my opinion, for you than it is for me. Because again, I came here with no expectations. Y'all had ideas. So, what makes something legendary? Wait for it. It's not that. There's no suit, no matter how much I try. There's no zombie apocalypse. Although the dog that was a sad scene. There's nothing in these movies. There's nothing in literature or storytelling that I have for you today, at least not in traditional storytelling, about what makes coming to an event like this truly legendary. When I look at the legends of the Python community, I look at the many different organizations over the last decade or so that I've gotten to work with. And some of these look familiar, some of these are new. Shout out to that one in the corner there. There was a Django Girls event or a PyLadies event here, I believe yesterday. Did anybody attend it? Anybody? Okay, well, I'm going to shout out Audrey, who I think was hosting it. So, like, these are the legends. Sometimes the legends are great. Sometimes the legends make mistakes. Sometimes the legends don't get the credit that they deserve. And again, this is why I had you clap your hands, because I ran out of real estate here, because I would have added the PythonAsia organizers and the PyCon US organizers and the organizers of every conference that I've gone to. But the reality is the events that are put on by these organizations and sponsored and funded and volunteered by the many different organizations represented here are truly the beginning of something legendary. In fact, when we see some of the examples that we have here where, as I joined the Discord, I was greeted by Anj saying, "Hey, I've been doing this for, what is that now, 8 years? 9 years? Oh, 9. No one, not counting though. And people saying, I'm wearing multiple hats, I'm a participant, a speaker, a volunteer, and I'm so excited. And when I see all the different leaders across different events that help, Black Python Devs, the organization that I'm partially responsible for, when I'm able to ask them questions on how things that we're doing impact them, these are the legends. These are the people whose ears you should be saying, hey, how do I do that thing that you're doing? How do I get involved in a way that you're getting involved? And I can tell you now that there is opportunity for growth. What you see here is just the trajectory of Black Python devs alone. You see, when we started as a nonprofit, it was kind of just me making a lot of bad decisions on behalf of a lot of people. And then I learned quickly I need help. So then we had 2 people making slightly better decisions with a year's worth of experience. And then the first thing that we learned was we need more help. So then we added 4 leaders, adding our vice executors, one for North America and one for Africa. And this year we learned we need more help. So we've doubled our numbers every year for leadership. And what we've learned is that doesn't make it easier or any more legendary. In fact, if I'm being honest, this has been the hardest year for me because for the first time in my now more than 10 years, don't try to guess my age, of speaking, I've had to withdraw from 3 different conferences. Now, obviously, PythonAsia wasn't one of those because I'm here, but it was in the process of recognizing that I hadn't been practicing self-care. It was in the moment of realizing that I was burning out rapidly. And it was someone telling me, hey, take care of yourself, after I kindly pinned a blog post that said, flamethrowers shouldn't be trusted with people who burn the candle at both ends. It's also the first time I've stepped down from other leadership positions. And in fact, this isn't breaking news, but this is kind of a reminding notice that I have announced publicly that I will be stepping down from Black Python devs at the end of 2028. And a lot of this is an effort to sustain my length in the Python community. Because again, it hasn't gotten easier to be the thing of legend. One of my friends and a fellow organization leader said, I'm forced to delegate this year. This is the least I've ever done for my conference, and my chairs have all their stuff together, and it's amazing, but I just keep finding myself having to do more. The list is never ending. Anyone here that is a business owner probably knows that. Anyone here that's, run a community for any amount of time knows that the list never ends. No matter how hard we try to make it, there's always something else that could be done. And the last thing that I want to share with this is some advice that I was given when I was too young to appreciate it. You see, I had a dream of becoming a Python core developer because I thought that was how you made it. I thought that was how you became a legend in the Python space. I saw all of these different roles that you could be assigned: core developer, steering council member, benevolent dictator for life, dream high, right? But someone told me your communication skills are more important than any line of code that you could ever contribute to the Python community. And I thought about that. As I sat there and watched people really excited about free-threaded Python and, embedding Rust into Python and doing so many amazing things, I was being told that getting on stage here and not showing a single line of code could have a much larger impact in the community than doing the opposite. Because the community is the thing of legend. I'm going to try something. Someone finish this line. I came for the code and I stayed for the community. I stayed for the smoothies. I like that. The Python community is the thing that other programming languages try to emulate but can't duplicate. It really is this amazing experience. But it's only that because it continues to thrive and survive. Again, 8 years of doing volunteer work, having been in that position, sometimes doesn't feel like being a legend. It feels like a prison sentence. Especially when, if you feel like if you don't do it, then it disappears. There are currently 3 events that are significantly closer than Manila, but that's okay, from my hometown in Atlanta, Georgia, that are no longer in existence now because during the COVID pandemic and shortly before, organizers realized that they were burned out. They realized that they didn't have the support that they needed. And those events are PythonAsia, PyCarolinas, and there was an attempt to do a Python conference in Florida. Unfortunately, I never really got to see it come off the ground. That is millions of people who lose the benefit of a regional Python conference year after year showing up. Because you don't just affect the people in this room, you affect the community around it. Again, for me, I'm getting to go and explore everywhere around the area, and I'm getting to eat at all the Jollibee, and I'm getting to go and try all the smoothies and do things. Those are opportunities to connect with cultures that I normally would not have the opportunity to connect with normally, that don't get to happen. And now they're fables. They're fairy tales. Oh, you should have been here when PythonAsia was happening. I've been told that so many times. PythonAsia was like the best conference ever. Unfortunately, they didn't record any of their talks, so I can't prove that, but I believe them, trust me. PythonAsia, PyCarolinas, these events were great. And for me, yeah, they are great because they're like an hour flight. I can get there and get home quickly and see my family. And, I can even contribute, maybe volunteer to be an organizer, but I don't get that privilege. So when these events do survive, when they do last, when they do continue to thrive, it's because of you. When you show up to an event, when you show interest, when you volunteer for years after years after years after years, and the speakers don't take time to remember your name, and the attendees don't come by and say, hey, thank you for putting this event on. It was absolutely fantastic. It's because of you constantly showing up anyway and doing these things that we get to have the legends of the Python community. Because if I'm being honest, a lot of people do come to conferences for different reasons. But I can tell you now that my favorite one that I ask people hey, so what's bringing you to the conference? And there are these 3 talks that I saw, and I was like, okay, so what brings you to the actual conference? Because if they're recorded, you could go watch those on YouTube when they come out, or you could just ask AI about that thing that you wanted to learn about. That doesn't seem like a good reason to show up. And if that's the reason that you showed up today, then I'm really excited because I hope that we'll get to open your mind to some other things. I've been told vibing is not a good thing anymore, or maybe it is. I don't know. But I will say that every Python conference that I've attended has always had great vibes. And I wouldn't be in the career path that I'm in today had I not gone to a really small conference in Northern California where someone gave a talk above all things technical writing and how to write good documentation. And when I thanked them for that talk, I asked them what they did, and they said, oh, well, I'm a developer advocate. And I was like, well, what's a developer advocate? I don't know what that is. And they sat down, and we had lunch, and we had a great conversation. And I guess the rest is history. Imagine how that never happened because the community didn't show up for it. So again, if you're here to speak, or if you're here to maybe catch that talk that you saw that looked really exciting, or maybe you're here to connect with your fellow friends, maybe from PyLadies or Django Girls, or you're a person who messages me in the Black Python Devs Discord like, yo, I'm here, how can I help out? You know who you are. That was really heartwarming, actually. Or maybe you're here because you're looking for a job. Or maybe you're here because you're hiring. Also, if you are a company that's hiring, put that on your badge. Because people are going to want to know what your name is, and they're going to see that you're hiring, and they're going to want to know a lot more about you, or at least about your company. But thank you for being here, because you shut out all the anxiety, you shut out all the fear, and because I said stand out, and my ADHD brain would not let me say stand out without a great reference to the greatest movie of all time. That's right, a Goofy movie. You're putting on your best Max Goof impersonation and being a super awesome professional while all of the fear and doubt is nestling in your brain. And you're like, I don't know if I can do this. I can promise you, I've been to too many conferences to count, and I still get that feeling. I had that feeling 5 minutes before I was on stage, and I sat there, and the music was playing in my head, and I put on my Powerline outfit, and I was doing like the eye-to-eye dance. We've already had one really great presentation of like talent. I'm not gonna ruin the record right now. But you're able to do all of that. So, you're here, you're doing a legendary thing already. Does anybody here want to actually learn maybe how to be a little more legendary? Again, it's my job to tell you the secrets. So I'm going to share a story with you. This is a very true story. And by the end, I hope that at least someone here will try to emulate this. And I like to call this legendary stories from non-legendary decisions. So you see me on stage with the shirt, the logo, the whatever I was doing there, I don't know. I blacked out and was just vibing. You want to know how we got there? It started in 2022. I was no longer in the military, as you could tell by the hair and the 15 added pounds, only 15. I was at my first PyCon US, and as I was walking around, I noticed something, that only 12 people looked like me. In the United States, in the middle of a conference for professionals, I counted 12 people with my fingers and my toes that looked like me. Everybody was at a booth working. So when people were being let out to go to lunch, I did the only thing that I knew. I took advice from my sergeant, from 10 years before, and I found someone and I said, hey, are you hungry? Well, it was lunchtime, so the answer was obviously yes. And I proceeded to talk to someone about, hey, what brings you to PyCon US? How are you enjoying it? Are you speaking? Did you submit a talk? Are you going to submit a lightning talk maybe? And they were like, why would I ever do that? And I was like, oh no, talks are like amazing and lightning talks are even great. In fact, I heard no one has ever died from giving a lightning talk. And I proceeded to convince this person to give a talk, and I promised him, I said, I will submit a lightning talk if you submit a lightning talk. And at PyCon US 2022, I gave a lightning talk, and the person on stage, his name is Nick Moe, gave his first talk at a Python conference as a lightning talk there. Now, fast forward, that same person in 2023 would go on to get a talk accepted and give a full talk, their first full talk at a PyCon US, and it all came out of a decision over a good chicken sandwich and open conversation where there were zero expectations involved. In fact, 2022 was the first time that I heard about this other conference that was happening in Dublin, Ireland, called EuroPython. And I asked my boss, I said, hey, what's our travel budget look like? And I was new, so I guess they were trying to set a good example, so they let me go to EuroPython. And while at EuroPython, I sat at a diversity working group with a few people, but there were two people in particular that I got to meet for the first time. And my boss, being a good boss, said, hey, are you hungry? To which I've always learned you say yes. The answer is always yes. You're always hungry. You always go to eat. To which I wound up having dinner that night with the same two people that I saw on stage. And I was really interested because I had been coming off of this feeling of like, wow, only 12 people that looked like me at PyCon US. And meanwhile, in Dublin, Ireland, of all places, they're having these conversations about diversity. And I'm really intrigued. So I began to ask all of the tough questions, to which someone agreed with me and someone didn't agree with me. One of them is in this room right now, so I won't say whether or not they did or didn't agree with me. The one who's not in the room right now, sadly, is Marlene Mangami. She created an organization in Harare, Zimbabwe called ZimboPy, and was a very heavy influence in what Black Python Devs would be about, because Black Python Devs is a US nonprofit, and up until 2023, it was illegal to give money to NGOs in Zimbabwe. So there was this active conversation about how do we make this work for these communities that need support, but like we can't do anything. And I'm happy to say that that person was sitting next to me, Marlene was sitting next to me, when I finally made the decision during Carol Willing's keynote speech at PyCon US of 2023 to create this little thing called Black Python Devs that started as a Discord. And in fact, that same person that I encouraged to give that lightning talk now is responsible for all of our event coordination, strategic planning for the United States and Canada. He was one of the 8 that we brought on this year. In fact, as I look at this screen that has Marlene, myself, and Nick, it also has 4 other people who were there that day, who are now council members, who are on that list, that long list of leaders that I showed you earlier. We just had an open space that basically said, hey, Black Python devs. That's all it said. And these are the people who showed up. And it was more than 12 this time. I was excited. Word was getting out. We were spreading the message. Now that other person, the other person in the room was Iqbal. And I remember having these conversations and just saying like, hey, Iqbal, like, we should be doing something, right? There needs to be some kind of organization that focuses on the things that are really important to us. And Iqbal was like, yeah, I don't know. And I was like, come on, there's gotta be something we can do. And I started pitching this idea of like regional representation in the form of NGOs. And Iqbal was like, I don't know, but it sounds like some kind of good idea, I guess, maybe, possibly. I'm not saying that I'm the one responsible for PAO. I'm just saying what would have happened had I not said yes to being hungry in Dublin, Ireland, at my first EuroPython ever after watching someone sit in a diversity community. So I'm not gonna take all the credit, I'm gonna take a little bit though. So as you can see, you can do a lot by just doing these little things, these little secrets. So in the 5 minutes or so that I have left before I think we're gonna do Q&A, I'm gonna give you some of my conference secrets, okay? Y'all ready? I expect people to take photos. I expect people to write things down. This is going to make or break your conference. I promise you this. One of these things will literally amplify your conference experience. Let's go. Step 1, have an unplanned conversation with someone over food. I've proven time and time again, it works and it works well. In fact, I had a banh mi yesterday with one of the other speakers, and we talked a ton about what it's like for the community in India and how people have to juggle going to meetups and going to conferences versus working really long hours. And what could we do to possibly incentivize companies in actually investing time and energy into these organizations and meetups in India? I learned a lot. I had zero expectations that this conversation would happen. Step 2, submit a lightning talk. Because again, no one has ever died from giving a lightning talk. But a lot of people have seen great success from it. Next, the Pac-Man rule, coined by Eric Holscher, who is here. So, if you see Eric, thank him for this contribution to the Python community. At least that's what I was told. If you're in a group talking with people, always make sure that there's a space open for someone to join in on the conversation. You have no clue how amazing these conversations become just because you made the active decision to include someone else into it. Self-care sprint. If you realize that you need a self-care sprint, it's probably too late. Do this before you burn out. Also, shout out to Frank Walls from RevSys and the DSF. That's the president of the DSF. I posted publicly online, hey, who wants to get a pedicure with me in Salt Lake City? And Jeff said yes. And I said, okay, you realize this now has to go in every single presentation I present ever for the rest of time. And also, I plan on getting another pedicure while I'm here. So, if anybody has good recommendations and wants to join me, just note that you might wind up being in future keynote presentations. Share and ask what people are excited about. I understand that developers can tend to be a little introverted, although what I will say is Filipino culture, all of my Filipinos and Filipinas, you're the most welcoming and loving people on the planet. I have 7 different experiences proving that, okay? So that being said, treat each other with that same compassion and just inquisitiveness. When you meet somebody, ask them, hey, are you speaking? Oh, what are you working on? Oh, that's cool. I've never heard anything about that. Tell me more about that. I'm really excited for the next talk because it's talking about the different places where AI does some goofy stuff and some strange stuff. And I'm like, I've got questions. If no one else raises their hand, I'm gonna raise mine because I'm like, ooh, I'm really interested in this and I wanna have that conversation and drag it out as long as I possibly can with all respect to the speaker. Make new friends. Find someone you didn't know and learn their name. I have already done this. I've also forgotten more names than I can remember. So don't make it weird if I look at you and I look at your badge really hard to try to remember what your name is. It's just me. I have a memory problem. It's not you. But connect with these people. Do it on social. Do it, in the conferences. In fact, just go to talks with them because they're excited and you're excited. And hey, maybe that talk sounds cool. Maybe it has nothing to do with your job or nothing to do with what you're interested in. There are 2 different talks about making video games at this conference. I love video games, okay? I'm really excited to be going into an area that I have no professional experience in, but I can learn. Plan your next lunch or dinner for a following meetup or conference. You know what makes going to a conference really exciting? When you do have like one little plan. I can already tell you, I have like 4 plans on having dinner with people, and there's only like 3 days in this conference. I'm gonna have to figure out how to make that work. We'll invent time travel while we're here. We'll figure it out. All that to say, if you forget everything else that I've said as I've talked through this storytelling experience today, legends are never planned. No one woke up today, no one in their right mind other than me woke up today to say, now's the day I become a legend. Those don't tend to work that well. But being there, being around, volunteering for that thing, having no expectation of what's going to happen if you say yes to a thing is going to allow you to experience so many things. And if no one told you today, I think every last one of you are already legendary. Thank you.
All right, I can see one person who wants to have a question. If you guys want to, they can fall in line as well. Okay, you can fall in line on the mics, okay? We have a person here who has a question.
We have a question.
Hello, I'm Benz. I'm all the way from UP Mindanao po. And I enjoyed your talk, first off.
Thank you.
I guess the question that kind of gets my mind churning po is, you mentioned about having unplanned conversations over food. And of all the dinners, the lunches, and the breakfasts you've had with people, so here's my question. This might, like, since you've been all over like different countries, different cuisines, what is the best type of food that had the best turnout from these conversations?
The best type of food that had the best like end result, or just the best food in that moment?
Let's do it both ways.
Okay, the best food that I had in that moment was probably a place in Riga, Latvia, that was called "This Place Doesn't Need a Name." It did not need a name. It was absolutely amazing. The best turnout has to be the trip to Dublin, because again, I think so many things kind of came out of that initial conversation. There's a funny story about that. We found out after the fact that was actually a Michelin star restaurant, and nobody was prepared to pay that kind of money.
Yeah, that's my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We have 2 more questions, okay.
Oh, okay.
Hello. Hi, Jay. Thank you for the talk. I'm Ed. Just curious, so you were a military before. Can you just talk us through your journey from military to developer, and what advice would you give to someone so that they can fast-track their career?
I will say for me, the military was, I lost a bet. And that's like the worst way to join the military. Don't do that. I was 18, it's a bad decision. But I got to travel all over Southeast Asia. The best advice that I would give is kind of what I was saying before. Make the most out of every experience, even if you didn't expect to be there, because you never know how that's going to impact you. I never imagined that I would be in the Philippines again. I mean, it wasn't on my travel plans. It was on my hopes and dreams, but, I didn't know of a way to do it. So it became a no-brainer when I was asked to speak. It was like, oh, wow. And then people were like, well, are you familiar with the Philippines? I was like, yes, I'm very familiar with the Philippines. So, like, can we just say yes to this so I can get Jollibee again? But I would say if you're trying to progress in your career, have as many conversations with people who are, where you're trying to go to. Have those conversations with them. Again, I didn't know that my job that I have today was even a job until I talked to a person in that role. And they were just so kind and courteous to have lunch with me for like 30 minutes and break down what their job entailed. And once I was like, oh, that's a cool thing, I was like, cool, how do I even get into this industry? And they actually reached out to some of the people that I would get my first job at. So, I mean, again, like, I have to chalk it to the community, like have those conversations, be willing to hear no a couple of times because again, people are busy doing things, a lot of things at time, but ultimately ask them if they want to go to lunch and you can pick their brain. And I mean, again, most people will say yes to food, you know?
Thanks, Jay.
All right, I think we can entertain one last question for our Q&A session.
Hi, good morning, PythonAsia, and good morning, Sir Miller. Thank you for having me. Yes, we're talking about legendaries, and I've inspired a lot of the things that you have mentioned today. And I'm also have a lot of things that I'm currently doing as well to become an aspiring on the thing that I want to do. I just want to ask this one specific question that because you're talking about legendary from the thing that you want to become. So, from all of your experiences before that you have encountered, what do you think or what did you do in the early stages that most people skip? And what would you do differently if you were starting over today?
The thing I think I did more than anyone else was I just asked if people were willing to do stuff. I mean, again, we talked about food. The way I learned about Eric's like involvement in the Pac-Man rule was I bumped into him at PyCon US and I said, hey, I'm doing some video interviews for no reason, apparently. Do you want to be a part of one? And Eric was like, sure, why not? And then we sat there and had a great conversation, and I did that with like 7 other people. And I got to meet people who like, it was their first time in the US, their first Python conference. And like, I just learned so many things from that. So I think that that's like the one thing. I remember there's usually someone with a camera from PyCon Japan that goes to PyCon US every year. And I like go out of my way to find them to just say, hey, everyone in PyCon APAC, PythonAsia, thank you so much for all the work that you do. You set such a great example, and it's amazing. And again, I'm not gonna say that doing that got me here, but I'm sure it helped, you know? So like, just doing things for the sake of doing them, even if they don't make sense at the time, have fun with it, ask questions, ask people to help you, and a lot of people in the community will just say, yeah, why not?